I stood in my kitchen reading the text message from my mother again, hoping somehow the words would change. Just confirming final headcount for the family reunion next weekend. We didn't include your children in the catering count since they won't be eating the main dishes anyway. Looking forward to seeing you. My hands tightened around the phone as I read it a third time. After 15 years of this subtle exclusion, you'd think I'd be used to it. But every slight against my kids still felt like a fresh wound. I glanced through the window at my 3 children playing in our backyard. Sarah, 14, was helping her younger brothers practice soccer moves. Daniel, 10, and Michael, 8, followed their sister's instructions with the focused determination they brought to everything they did. All 3 had inherited their mother's grace and my stubbornness, a combination that had served them well in navigating a world that wasn't always kind to children who looked different than their cousins. The sound of the front door opening pulled me from my thoughts. My wife Maria walked in, still in her surgeon's scrubs after her hospital shift. "Hey," she said, noticing my expression. "What's wrong?" I handed her my phone. She read the message, her face darkening. "Again, after what happened at Christmas?" I nodded. The Christmas incident had been particularly bad. My mother had served the kids plain rice while their cousins got elaborate holiday dishes, claiming she wasn't sure what they could eat. This despite Maria having sent detailed dietary information ahead of time. "Maybe we shouldn't go," Maria suggested. "Not for the first time. The kids don't need to be treated like this." "If we don't go, they win," I said. "Besides, Dad asked specifically to see the kids. He's been different since his health scare." Maria sighed, running her fingers through her dark hair. "Your father's trying, but your mother and sisters, I know." I pulled her close, breathing in the antiseptic hospital smell that still clung to her scrubs. "But I have a plan this time." She raised an eyebrow. "The last time you said that, you ended up buying the building your sister's restaurant was in. That was different. She was trying to force us out by tripling the rent on our medical clinic. Besides," I grinned, "being her landlord has made her much more polite." "True. So what's the plan this time?" Before I could answer, the kids burst in from the backyard, bringing with them the energy that always made our house feel more alive. "Dad," Michael launched himself at me. "I did the move Sarah taught me. 3 times. That's amazing, buddy." I caught him easily, noting how his soccer jersey was covered in grass stains. "You'll have to show me after dinner." "Speaking of dinner," Sarah said, fixing me with her mother's penetrating stare. "I saw Grandma's text on your phone earlier." My heart sank. Sarah had always been too observant for her own good. "Don't worry about that, sweetheart." "I'm not worried," she said with a confidence that made my chest tighten. "I already handled it." Maria and I exchanged glances. "What do you mean you handled it?" Sarah pulled out her phone, showing us a group text she'd sent to all her cousins. "Hey, everyone. Looking forward to the reunion. Mom's teaching me and the boys how to make her special spring rolls. We'll bring enough for everyone. Don't tell the adults, it's a surprise." The responses from her cousins scrolled down the screen, all enthusiastic. Sarah's food was legendary among the younger generation, who had none of their parents' prejudices. "Sarah," Maria started. I know, I should have asked first. But Jenny and Kate love when I bring food to school. And Josh said his mom never lets them have ethnic food at home, which is just sad." I looked at my daughter, so much wiser than I was at her age, and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. "You shouldn't have to be the one fixing this," I said softly. She shrugged. "Someone has to. Besides, I like teaching the cousins about good food. Maybe if they learn, their parents will too." Daniel, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "Is that why Grandma doesn't want us to eat with everyone? Because Mom's food is different?" The innocent question hung in the air, heavy with implications I wished my children didn't have to understand so young. Maria knelt beside him. "Some people are scared of things that are different. Me amor. Even when different is beautiful. Like how Aunt Susan wouldn't let Jenny come to my birthday because she was afraid of our food." Michael asked. "But then Jenny came anyway, and loved everything." "Exactly like that," I said, remembering how my sister had called in a panic when Jenny came home raving about Maria's cooking. "Sometimes people need time to learn." "Well, they better learn fast," Sarah declared. "Because I'm making spring rolls for everyone, and they're going to love them." I caught Maria's eye over our daughter's head, seeing my own mixture of emotions reflected there. Our children shouldn't have to be the ones building bridges, but they did it with a grace that humbled me. Okay, I said, we'll make spring rolls. But that's not all we're going to do. The kids gathered around as I outlined my plan. By the time I finished, even Maria was smiling. You're sure about this? She asked. It's a lot of money. It's worth it, I assured her. Besides, the catering company already agreed. They seemed quite excited about the idea. Sarah's eyes sparkled. Can I help plan the menu? Actually, you three are the most important part of the plan. Over the next week, our house became a flurry of activity. The kids threw themselves into preparation with characteristic determination. Sarah perfected her spring roll technique, teaching her brothers until they could roll them in their sleep. Daniel researched traditional recipes from both sides of their heritage, creating a fusion menu that made Maria cry with pride. Even Michael contributed, using his artistic talents to design place cards for every family member. The night before the reunion, as I watched my family working together in the kitchen, I thought about how far we'd come. When Maria and I first married, my family's reaction had been less than welcoming. My mother had refused to attend the wedding, claiming she was ill. My sisters had shown up but left before the reception, missing the elaborate feast Maria's family had prepared. Now, 15 years later, we had built something beautiful despite their resistance. Our medical clinic, started in a tiny rented space, had grown into a respected practice serving our diverse community. Our children, rather than being broken by their family's subtle rejection, had grown stronger and more compassionate because of it. My phone buzzed, another text from my mother. Please remind Maria not to bring any spicy food. You know how sensitive everyone's stomachs are. I showed the message to Maria, who was teaching Michael how to fold dumplings. Should we tell her about tomorrow? She asked. Let it be a surprise, I decided. Sometimes people need a little shock to see clearly. Sarah looked up from her spring roll assembly line. Dad, what if they still don't want to eat our food? I pulled her close, flour dusting both our clothes. Then they'll miss out on something wonderful. But that's their loss, not ours. Besides, Daniel added wisely, more for us. We all laughed, the sound echoing through our kitchen that smelled of ginger and garlic, and love. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Maria and I sat in our backyard, looking at the stars. Remember our first date? She asked. When you were so nervous about trying my mom's cooking. I smiled at the memory. I was an idiot, but I learned. Yes, you did. She squeezed my hand. That's why tomorrow will work, because people can change when they open their hearts. And their mouths, I added, making her laugh. Your mother won't know what hit her. That's the idea. We sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds and thinking about tomorrow. The catering company had confirmed everything was ready. The kids had prepared their contributions. Now we just had to wait and see if my family was ready to finally sit at one table, sharing one meal. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from my father, looking forward to seeing you and the kids tomorrow, son. I've missed them. At least one person in my family was trying to change. Tomorrow would show if the others were ready to join him. I sent back a simple reply. We have a surprise for everyone. Maria read the message over my shoulder. Are you ready for this? I thought about our children, so proud of their heritage, so eager to share it with others. I thought about my sister's kids, secretly loving their cousins' cooking while their parents clung to their prejudices. I thought about my father, slowly opening his mind after years of silent compliance with my mother's exclusion. Yes, I said firmly, it's time they learned what we've known all along, that the best families, like the best meals, are made by embracing all their different parts. The family reunion was being held at my parents' sprawling suburban home, the same place where I'd grown up, and where my children had never quite felt welcome. As we pulled into the driveway, I could see the catering van already parked around back, right on schedule. Everyone remember their parts? I asked, looking in the rearview mirror at my 3 children. They nodded solemnly. Sarah clutched her container of spring rolls, while Daniel and Michael held their own carefully prepared dishes. Maria squeezed my hand, her quiet strength steadying me as always. My sister Susan's BMW was already there, along with my other sister Patricia's Range Rover. The show of wealth was typical. They'd both married into money, and never let anyone forget it. As we approached the front door, it swung open to reveal my father. His face lit up at the sight of his grandchildren, though the recent stroke had left his smile slightly lopsided. "There they are," he called out, his voice warm. He'd been making a genuine effort lately, perhaps realizing, after his health scare, that some things were more important than maintaining the family's artificial harmony. The kids rushed to hug him, careful with their precious food containers. He embraced them eagerly, and I noticed he didn't flinch away from their touch like he used to. Progress, however small, was still progress. "What's in the containers?" he asked, genuinely curious. Before anyone could answer, my mother appeared behind him. "Oh, you didn't need to bring anything," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "The catering is all arranged." "We wanted to contribute," Sarah said firmly, standing straight and tall like her mother always did when facing disapproval. "How thoughtful," my mother managed, though I could see her already planning how to hide the food away from the proper dishes. Inside, the scene was exactly as expected. My sister's children were dressed like they'd stepped out of a country club catalog, while their mothers hovered nearby, ready to protect them from any hint of cultural contamination. "Uncle," Jenny, Susan's daughter, broke away from her mother's grasp and ran to hug me. At 16, she'd grown into a thoughtful young woman who often defied her mother's prejudices. "Hey there," I hugged her back, noting Susan's slight frown. "Sarah brought those spring rolls you like." Jenny's face lit up. "Really? The ones from last time?" "Even better," Sarah promised. "I added a special sauce." Susan cleared her throat. "Jenny, remember your allergies." "Mom, I don't have any allergies," Jenny said with teenage exasperation. "You just don't like me eating foreign food." The room grew awkwardly quiet. Patricia's husband, Charles, coughed uncomfortably, while their kids looked longingly at the containers my children carried. Just then, the caterer appeared from the kitchen, right on cue. "Excuse me," she said, "but there seems to be a problem with the main course." My mother's face fell. "What problem?" "The delivery was incomplete. We're missing half the planned dishes." But the reunion starts in an hour. All these people to feed." I stepped forward. "Actually, Mom, I might have a solution." She looked at me suspiciously. "What do you mean?" "Well, you see, I took the liberty of arranging some additional catering. It should be arriving right about." The doorbell rang. Now, before anyone could stop me, I opened the door to reveal a team of servers wheeling in carts laden with covered dishes. The aroma that filled the room was intoxicating, a perfect blend of traditional American dishes and the Asian fusion cuisine Maria had taught our children to love. "What is this?" my mother demanded. "This," I said calmly, "is lunch. All of it approved by the same catering company you hired." They were quite excited to collaborate with Maria on the menu. Sarah stepped forward, lifting the lid off her container. "And these are my contributions, made with love for my whole family." The other kids in the room gravitated toward the smell, ignoring their parents' attempts to hold them back. "You can't just," Susan started. "Can't just what?" I asked quietly. "Feed my family, share our culture, let your children experience something beyond their carefully controlled bubble." "The children aren't used to this kind of food," Patricia protested weakly. "Actually, Mom," her son Josh spoke up, "we eat Sarah's food at school all the time. She shares with us when you pack us those boring sandwiches." Patricia's face flushed as several other cousins nodded in agreement. My father, who had been watching silently, suddenly laughed. The sound broke through the tension like sunshine through clouds. "Well," he said, "I'm hungry, and everything smells delicious." He turned to Maria. "Would you do me the honor of explaining each dish to me? I'd like to know what I'm eating." The simple request, delivered with genuine interest, seemed to shift something in the room. Jenny immediately joined him, pulling her reluctant mother along. "These spring rolls," Sarah began, her voice clear and proud, "are made with a recipe that combines Grandma Maria's traditional technique with some modifications I created." As she spoke, more cousins drifted over, drawn by the smell, and her confident presentation. Even some of the adults looked interested despite themselves. My mother stood frozen, watching her carefully planned reunion transform into something entirely different. The catering staff, following our detailed instructions, began setting up a magnificent buffet that showcased both cultures equally. "Try this one, Grandpa," Daniel said, offering a dumpling to my father. "It's filled with the same things you like in your meatballs, just prepared differently." My father took a bite, his eyes widening in surprise and pleasure. That's actually wonderful." "See," Michael piped up, "different can be good." Out of the mouths of babes. The next hour was a study in walls slowly crumbling. Jenny and Josh appointed themselves assistant servers, proudly explaining dishes they'd learned about from their cousins. Patricia's husband Charles, after tasting Maria's special fusion sauce, actually asked for the recipe. Susan held out the longest, standing stiffly by the traditional dishes, but even she couldn't ignore how much fun her children were having. When Jenny brought her a plate, carefully selected to start with something not too different, "Mom," she finally took a small bite. The surprise on her face was almost comical. "This is quite good," she admitted reluctantly. "That's Mom's special recipe," Sarah said, "the one you wouldn't try at my birthday party last year." The pointed comment hung in the air, but instead of responding with her usual defensiveness, Susan had the grace to look embarrassed. "I'm sorry about that," she said quietly. I was wrong." My mother, meanwhile, had retreated to the kitchen. I found her there, staring out the window. "You planned this all along," she said without turning around. "Yes, why?" "Because it's time for things to change, Mom. My children deserve to be fully part of this family, not just tolerated at the edges. We never meant to." "Yes, you did," I cut her off gently. "Every separate meal, every excluded dish, every time you made them feel their difference was something to be ashamed of. You meant all of it." She turned to face me, and I saw tears in her eyes. "I was trying to protect the family traditions by denying half of what my children are." "That's not protection, Mom. That's prejudice." From the dining room, we heard laughter, genuine joyful laughter. My father's voice carried clearly. "Sarah, you must teach me how to make these. They're better than anything I've had in a restaurant." My mother wiped her eyes. "Your father's changed since his stroke. He's realized what matters. The question is, have you?" Before she could answer, Maria appeared in the doorway. "The kids are asking for their grandmother," she said softly. "All of them." My mother hesitated, then straightened her shoulders. Perhaps you could show me how to make those spring rolls Sarah's so proud of." It wasn't a full surrender, but it was a start. Back in the dining room, the scene had transformed. Children and adults sat mixed together, sharing dishes from both cultures, asking questions, telling stories. My father held court at the head of the table, proudly wearing the traditional cooking apron Michael had made him, complete with hand-painted designs, combining elements from both sides of our family. "Mom," Sarah called out, "come tell Aunt Susan about the time you taught me to make my first dumpling." As Maria led my mother to the table, I watched my family, all of them, begin to truly share a meal for the first time in 15 years. It wasn't perfect. There were still stiff shoulders and careful glances. Susan kept checking her phone for imaginary allergen information. Patricia's husband made a slightly insensitive comment about exotic food, but there was also Jenny asking Sarah for cooking lessons. Josh and Daniel, planning a fusion food blog. My father requesting seconds of everything, his smile growing more symmetrical with each bite. Small steps, but steps forward nonetheless. The atmosphere at family gatherings shifted subtly after that first reunion. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Prejudices built over decades don't dissolve in a single meal. But change was undeniably in motion. 2 months later, we hosted Thanksgiving at our house. The invitation had gone out with a simple note: all dishes welcome, all people welcome. No exceptions. I stood in our kitchen watching Sarah teach Jenny how to properly wrap dumplings while my mother hovered nearby, trying to pretend she wasn't interested. "The key is in how you fold the edges," Sarah explained, her hands moving with practiced grace. See, Grandma? Like how you taught me to crimp pie crust, but with a different twist. My mother stepped closer despite herself. The technique is similar to how my mother made pierogies. Really? Sarah's eyes lit up. Will you show me? The surprise on my mother's face quickly melted into pleasure. Yes, I suppose I could. Maria caught my eye from across the kitchen, where she was supervising Daniel and Josh's attempt at fusion cranberry sauce. Her smile said everything. Progress, one dumpling at a time. Susan arrived next, carrying something that made us all do a double take, a homemade attempt at spring rolls. Jenny's been practicing at home, she explained, slightly defensive. I thought I should learn too. They're probably not very good. The important thing is that you tried, Maria said warmly, taking the plate. Come, I'll show you a few tricks for next time. The kitchen filled with family members, all cooking together for the first time in memory. Patricia's husband Charles, who discovered a passion for Asian spices, was experimenting with a 5-spice turkey rub under Michael's serious supervision. My father sat at the counter, happily taste-testing everything and offering encouragement to all. Remember when we weren't allowed to cook here? Daniel whispered to me as he stirred his sauce. Because Grandma said our food would make the kitchen smell. Things change, buddy, I replied, watching my mother learn dumpling technique from her granddaughter. Sometimes people just need time to grow. The doorbell rang, more family arriving. This time it was my Uncle Robert, who'd always been quietly disapproving of my marriage. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a bottle of wine. I brought a rice wine, he said gruffly. The shop owner said it pairs well with Asian food. Another small step. As the house filled with family, the kitchen became a blur of activity. Traditional American dishes shared counter space with Asian fusion creations. The smell was incredible, a perfect blend of both worlds. Dad, Sarah called out, can you help settle something? Aunt Susan doesn't believe the story about how you and Mom met. I joined them at the counter, where Susan was crimping dumplings with surprising skill. Which story? The official version or the true one? The true one, Sarah insisted. About the food truck. Susan looked up, curious despite herself. Food truck, I smiled at the memory. That's right. You never heard this version. Mom was running her family's food truck while putting herself through medical school. I was a regular customer who kept ordering the spiciest dishes to impress her. Even though you couldn't handle spicy food back then, Maria added, joining us. He turned purple trying to eat my mother's special curry. But he kept coming back, Sarah said proudly, because he cared more about getting to know Mom than staying in his comfort zone. The pointed comment wasn't lost on Susan, who flushed slightly. I'm beginning to understand that approach, she admitted, glancing at her daughter happily cooking alongside her cousins. My father appeared with his camera, insisting on documenting the scene. For the family album, he said, all of us cooking together. Finally, the word finally hung in the air, heavy with meaning. As we gathered around the expanded dining table, we'd had to add 3 leaves to fit everyone. I noticed something remarkable. The seating had naturally mixed, with no division between the traditional and fusion sides of the family. Josh sat between Daniel and Michael, comparing notes on their sauce experiment. Jenny and Sarah held court at one end, already planning their next cooking collaboration. My mother stood uncertainly by her usual seat at the head of the table. Perhaps, she said carefully, Maria should take the host's position today, since she guided most of the cooking. Another small step, another barrier broken. Maria smiled warmly. Why don't we both serve? Show everyone how 2 traditions can work together. As the food was passed around, I watched faces light up with discovery. Uncle Robert's skeptical expression turned to surprise as he tasted Sarah's dumplings. Patricia's youngest, usually so picky, asked for seconds of everything. You know, my father said during a lull in conversation, I've been thinking about our family cookbook. The cookbook was legendary. A collection of recipes passed down through generations of my mother's family. I think, he continued, it's time to add some new sections. If Maria and the children would be willing to contribute their recipes. My mother's fork paused halfway to her mouth. The old cookbook was her pride, carefully preserved and previously unaltered. The binding is getting worn, she said slowly. If we're having it rebound anyway, perhaps it's time for an expansion. Sarah straightened in her chair. Really, our recipes would go in the family cookbook. Of course, my father said firmly. They're family recipes, aren't they? The simple statement brought tears to Maria's eyes. After dinner, as everyone helped clean up, another new development. I found Jenny and Sarah in intense discussion. We want to start a cooking club at school, Jenny announced. Teaching fusion recipes, show people how different cultures can work together. Mom actually offered to help, Sarah added, still sounding surprised. Aunt Susan, I mean. She said she wants to learn more. I looked across the kitchen where Susan was carefully packing leftover dumplings to take home, her earlier reluctance replaced by genuine enthusiasm. Sometimes, I told the girls, people just need a chance to taste something different to realize it's not scary at all. Like how Grandma asked for my spring roll recipe, Sarah asked proudly. Exactly like that. As family members began to leave, loaded down with leftover containers, the goodbyes were different than before. There were real hugs, genuine promises to cook together again soon. Next time at our house, Susan offered. Jenny wants to show everyone her dumpling technique. And Mom promised to teach me pierogies. Sarah added. We thought maybe we could combine the recipes somehow. My mother, overhearing this, actually smiled. I think my mother would have liked that. She was always interested in new things, even if she didn't show it. Maybe that's where you get it from, Sarah. It was the first time she'd ever acknowledged Sarah's connection to her side of the family. After everyone left, our family sat in the living room, pleasantly exhausted. Michael was already planning his next fusion experiment, while Daniel scrolled through pictures of the day on his phone. Look at this one, he said, showing us a photo of all the cousins crowded around the kitchen island, flour-covered and laughing. You can't even tell who belongs to which side of the family anymore. That's because it doesn't matter, Maria said softly. Family is family. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Thank you for not giving up on us. The children's recipes will have a special section in the cookbook. Your father is already planning the layout. Another buzz, this time from Susan. Jenny won't stop talking about cooking school now. Apparently my daughter wants to be a fusion chef. I think I have you all to thank for that. And finally, a message from my father. Best Thanksgiving ever. Don't tell your mother. But I never liked her turkey anyway. Sarah's 5-spice version was much better. I showed the messages to Maria, who laughed softly. You know what this means, she said. Christmas dinner is going to be interesting. Very interesting, I agreed. But I think we're ready. Sarah looked up from her own phone. Aunt Susan wants the recipe for the dumpling dough. Should I tell her the secret ingredient? Tell her everything, I said. That's what family does. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, covering our neighborhood in a clean white blanket. Inside, our home still smelled of two cultures coming together, of barriers breaking down, of family finding its way back to what really matters. One meal at a time. 6 months after the reunion that changed everything, I stood in my parents' kitchen, watching my mother learn to make dumplings under Sarah's patient instruction. The scene would have been unimaginable half a year ago. Like this, Grandma, Sarah demonstrated the perfect pleating technique. See how the edges come together. My mother's attempts were less than perfect, but her concentration was absolute. It's harder than it looks, she admitted, without the defensive tone that would have once accompanied such a confession. You should have seen my first tries. Sarah laughed. Right, Dad? They looked more like abstract art. I agreed, remembering those early cooking lessons. But you kept practicing. That's what Mom always says. Practice makes perfect. From the dining room came the sounds of the rest of the family gathering for our new monthly tradition, Sunday dinner, featuring dishes from both sides of our heritage. The change hadn't been immediate or easy, but it had been steady. Susan entered the kitchen, carrying a bowl of salad. 6 months ago she would have made excuses to avoid these gatherings. Now she came early to help. Jenny's been practicing those spring rolls all week, she told Sarah. She wants your approval on her technique. Really? Sarah beamed. I'll check them after I finish helping Grandma. My mother looked up from her dumpling-making efforts. I never thought I'd say this, but these family dinners have become the highlight of my month. The admission carried weight. After the reunion, she'd struggled with the changes. But watching her grandchildren share their culture, seeing the joy it brought to the whole family, had slowly transformed her. Dad's waiting in the dining room, Susan reported. He wants to show everyone the new apron he bought. It has Chinese characters on it. Did someone check if they're actually correct this time? I asked, remembering the unfortunate incident with his first attempted purchase. Maria verified them. My mother said, surprising me with her casual reference to my wife. She's been teaching him basic phrases. The doorbell rang, announcing more arrivals. Patricia's voice carried from the entryway, along with the excited chatter of her children. Josh's food blog, started with Daniel after the reunion, had gained a small but devoted following. Uncle Josh burst into the kitchen, tablet in hand. Look at the comments on our latest post. People love the fusion recipes. My mother smiled proudly. Show your grandfather. He's been sharing the blog with everyone at his club. The transformation in my father had been the most dramatic. After the reunion, he'd thrown himself into learning about his grandchildren's heritage with characteristic enthusiasm. His stroke recovery had even seemed to accelerate, powered by his determination to master chopsticks. Maria appeared in the doorway, looking amused. Your father is teaching the kids traditional Chinese greetings. His accent is interesting. At least he's trying, my mother said softly. We all are, and they were. The past 6 months had seen changes I'd never thought possible. Susan had enrolled Jenny in cooking classes at the local Asian Cultural Center. Patricia had asked Maria to cater her company's diversity event. Even Charles, after initially resisting, had become an enthusiastic supporter of Josh's culinary adventures. Everyone, Michael's voice carried from the dining room. Dad's surprise is here. Ah yes, the surprise. I'd been planning this for weeks. We all gathered in the dining room, where my father sat at the head of the table, proudly wearing his new apron. The table was set with a mixture of Western and Asian dishes, each place setting featuring both fork and chopsticks. What's the surprise? Jenny asked eagerly. I nodded to Maria, who brought out a large covered dish. This, I announced, is something special. Mom, would you like to explain? My mother stepped forward, looking nervous but determined. I've been taking private cooking lessons, she admitted, from Maria and the children. Today I made my first complete dish on my own. It's not perfect, but she lifted the cover to reveal perfectly formed dumplings. Not the ones she'd been practicing with earlier, but ones she'd prepared in secret over the past week. The room fell silent. Mom, Susan whispered. I used the recipe Sarah taught me. My mother continued, her voice growing stronger. But I added a little twist. The filling includes some of the herbs from my mother's old recipes. A true fusion, just like our family.